The price tag on my black funeral dress swayed gently as I stepped into the marble-floored chapel. I hadn't planned on wearing something new to my father's funeral, but 6 years of distance meant none of my old formal clothes fit anymore. The boutique clerk had assured me the tags could stay hidden under the collar. They scratched against my neck now, a constant reminder that I was an outsider here. My name is Talia, and I'm the daughter nobody expected to show up today. The chapel's grandeur matched my father's taste, all polished wood and stained glass, with flower arrangements that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Yet, barely 30 people occupied the pews, most of them business associates who kept checking their watches. Well, look who finally decided to grace us with her presence. I didn't need to turn around to recognize that voice. Tiffany, my younger sister, clicked her designer heels against the marble floor as she approached. Her black dress probably cost more than my car. "Hello, Tiffany," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "How's Mom holding up?" "Like you care." She adjusted her perfectly styled hair in a nearby reflection. "She's in the family room with actually supportive people. You know, the ones who didn't abandon Dad when he needed us most." I bit back a response about how he'd pushed me away long before I left. Instead, I simply nodded and moved to find a seat. "Don't bother with the family section," Tiffany called after me. "Those spots are reserved for people mentioned in the will." Before I could respond, a warm hand touched my shoulder. "Talia, you made it." Jalen, my childhood friend, stood there in a crisp suit, his familiar smile a lighthouse in this storm. "Come sit with me. I saved you a spot." As we settled into a pew, I noticed my mother across the chapel, dabbing her eyes with an embroidered handkerchief. She saw me too, but quickly looked away, whispering something to Frederick, the family attorney. "How are you holding up?" Jalen asked quietly. "I'm fine, really." I smoothed my dress, the tags scratching again. "It's just strange, being back here." "Miss Talia?" A soft voice interrupted us. It was Olive, our old housekeeper, looking exactly as I remembered her. "It's good to see you, dear. Your father. He spoke of you often." Tiffany's sharp laugh cut through the air. "Oh, please, Olive, the only time Dad mentioned her was to say what a disappointment she'd become." Several heads turned our way. I felt my cheeks burn but kept my expression neutral. "Thank you for being here, Olive." The service began, a parade of carefully worded eulogies that painted my father as a business genius and family man. I watched Tiffany sob dramatically during her speech about being Daddy's special girl and how he'd taught her everything she knew about success. What she didn't mention was how that success came from him paying her way through life while cutting me off for choosing to study literature instead of business. After the final prayers, Frederick approached the podium, clearing his throat. Before we proceed to the cemetery, the deceased requested an immediate reading of his will. Tiffany straightened up, shooting me a smug smile. "Don't worry, sis," she whispered loud enough for nearby mourners to hear. "He left you nothing, just like you deserve." Frederick adjusted his glasses, unfolding a document with deliberate slowness. The chapel fell silent except for the rustle of paper and my sister's confident shifting in her seat. "Regarding the distribution of assets belonging to Frederick James Thornton," he began, his voice echoing off the chapel walls. "To my youngest daughter, Tiffany Marie Thornton, I leave the Mercedes-Benz currently registered in her name." The smile froze on Tiffany's face. "And to my eldest daughter, Talia Ann Thornton," Frederick continued, "I leave the entirety of my remaining estate, including but not limited to the family residence, all business holdings, investment portfolios, and personal effects." The chapel erupted in whispers. My mother's handkerchief dropped to the floor. Tiffany stood up so quickly, her chair scraped against the marble with a screech. "That's impossible," she hissed. "There has to be a mistake." Frederick adjusted his glasses again. "The will is quite clear, Miss Thornton, and legally binding." As chaos erupted around me, I felt a gentle tug on my sleeve. Olive stood there, pressing a sealed envelope into my hand. The paper was thick, expensive. My father's preferred stationery. His handwriting sprawled across the front. For Talia, because not everything is what it seems. My hands trembled as I held the envelope, but before I could open it, Tiffany's voice cut through the chapel like a knife. I'll contest this, all of it. You'll see what happens when you try to steal what's rightfully mine. I looked up to meet her gaze, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel small under her glare. Something in my father's letter felt heavy with truth, and suddenly I couldn't wait to read it. The letter burned in my pocket as Frederick led us to my father's study. The familiar scent of leather and old books wrapped around me like a forgotten embrace. Nothing had changed. Same mahogany desk, same wall-to-wall bookshelves, same leather chair where Dad used to sit and ignore me. This is ridiculous, Tiffany snapped, pacing the Persian rug. I demand to see proof that this will is legitimate. Frederick calmly spread documents across the desk. Everything is in order, notarized and witnessed. Your father updated his will 3 months ago. 3 months? My mother's voice cracked. But that's when he was lucid and fully aware, Frederick finished firmly. I personally verified his mental state. Jalen squeezed my shoulder supportively as I sank into one of the visitors' chairs. The same chair where 6 years ago my father had coldly informed me I was cut off from the family finances unless I changed my career path. What about the business? Tiffany demanded. I'm the one who's been working there for the past 5 years. The business holdings transfer completely to Talia, Frederick stated, including your position, which she now has the authority to reassess. Tiffany's face went white. You can't be serious. She knows nothing about running a company. She writes book reviews for a living. I'm an editor, I corrected quietly, and I have an MBA that I paid for myself. Oh, playing the martyr card? Tiffany laughed bitterly. Poor Talia, who ran away because Daddy wouldn't buy her a poetry degree. That's enough, Frederick interrupted. There's more to discuss. He produced another envelope, this one containing keys. The estate keys, safe combinations, and access codes. All properties transfer immediately. He slid them across the desk to me. My mother stepped forward, her designer heels silent on the thick carpet. Surely there's been a mistake. Frederick, you knew him best. He wouldn't do this to Tiffany. On the contrary, Martina. Frederick's voice carried an edge I'd never heard before. He knew exactly what he was doing. A knock at the study door interrupted us. Olive entered, carrying a silver tray with coffee. As she served everyone, she paused beside me. The blue leather journal on the third shelf, she whispered. He wanted you to find it. Tiffany was still ranting about legal challenges when I crossed to the bookshelf. The journal sat exactly where Olive had indicated, wedged between first editions of Dickens and Austen. What are you doing? Tiffany demanded. Those are Dad's private things. Actually, I said, running my fingers along the spine, they're mine now. The journal fell open naturally to a dog-eared page. My father's precise handwriting filled the margins with dates and notes. As I scanned the text, my hands began to shake. What is it? Jalen asked softly. Before I could answer, Tiffany snatched the journal from my hands. Her eyes widened as she read, then narrowed dangerously. This is fake, all of it. You planted this. The journal has been here for years. Olive spoke up unexpectedly. I've dusted around it every week. You? Tiffany whirled on our housekeeper. You helped her set this up, didn't you? Always favoring her, telling her stories about Dad asking about her? Because he did ask about her, Olive replied calmly. Every day. My mother tried to grab the journal, but Frederick intercepted it. That's now private property, he said firmly. Any interference could be considered theft. I finally pulled out my father's letter, the paper crisp under my fingers. He saw everything, didn't he, Olive? The housekeeper nodded slowly. more than anyone knew. "This is insane!" Tiffany's voice rose hysterically. "I was his favorite. Everyone knows that." "Perhaps," Frederick said, gathering his documents, "you should ask your mother about that." The room fell silent. My mother's face drained of color as she gripped the back of a chair. "Mom?" Tiffany's voice suddenly sounded very young. "What's he talking about?" But our mother was staring at the journal in Frederick's hands, her perfectly manicured fingers trembling. "Where did he get that information?" she whispered. "He was a thorough man," Frederick replied. "He kept records of everything, including DNA tests." The word hung in the air like smoke. Tiffany's eyes darted between our mother and the journal, realization dawning on her face. "I think," I said quietly, "we all need to sit down for this." "No," Tiffany backed away toward the door. "No, I don't want to hear whatever lies you've concocted. This isn't over, Talia. I'll fight this with every lawyer in the state if I have to." She stormed out, the door slamming behind her. Our mother hesitated, then hurried after her, leaving me alone with Frederick, Jalen, and Olive. "Your father," Frederick said softly, "wanted you to know that he regretted many things. But most of all, he regretted letting others convince him to doubt you." I looked down at the letter in my hands, still unopened. "I think," I said, "it's time I heard what he had to say." The study felt different with everyone gone. Jalen sat across from me while I stared at my father's letter, the envelope growing damp from my nervous fingers. "Want me to read it first?" he offered. I shook my head. "No, I need to do this myself." Taking a deep breath, I broke the seal. My father's distinctive handwriting filled the page. "Dearest Talia, if you're reading this, I've finally found the courage in death that I lacked in life. First, I must say what I should have said years ago. I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything. Your mother convinced me that your independence was defiance, that your love of books was rebellion. I let her shape my view of you while she molded Tiffany into what she called the perfect daughter. But I watched. I saw how Tiffany took credit for your ideas at family dinners. I saw her sabotage your college applications. I saw her empty my safe bit by bit, thinking I wouldn't notice. What you don't know is that I've read every article you've published, every review you've written. I kept them all in the bottom drawer of my desk." I paused, looking at the drawer in question. Jalen was already moving to open it. Inside lay a thick folder, stuffed with printouts of my work, some with notes in the margins. "Keep reading," Jalen urged gently. "There's something else you need to know," the letter continued. "Something about Tiffany that your mother never wanted revealed. But before you read the second letter, the one marked for Tiffany, you should examine the blue journal thoroughly. The truth about her parentage is detailed there, along with proof. The first editions in my collection, the ones you used to read when you thought I wasn't watching, they're worth more than this house. I've had Jalen appraising them quietly for months." I looked up sharply at my friend. He smiled sheepishly. "Surprise?" "The Austin alone is worth over $200,000, he admitted. "Your father contacted me about 6 months ago. Asked me to catalog everything, but keep it quiet." My hands were shaking as I returned to the letter. "I'm trusting you with everything, Talia, because you were always the one who understood the value of things beyond their price tags. The business needs your integrity. The house needs your heart. And Tiffany needs to face the truth. I know you'll handle this revelation better than she will. You're stronger than anyone ever gave you credit for, especially me. Look in the safe behind my portrait. The combination is your birthday. The real one, not the date your mother insisted we use on documents. All my love. Too late but forever, Dad." I stood up slowly, walking to his portrait above the fireplace. Jalen helped me lift it down, revealing the wall safe behind it. "What did he mean about your real birthday?" Jalen asked. "Mom always celebrated it on the 15th, I said quietly, But I was born on the 12th. I found my original birth certificate once. She threw a fit when I mentioned it. The safe clicked open on 0612. Inside lay another envelope marked for Tiffany in red ink, along with a USB drive and a stack of legal documents. Holy, Jalen whispered, picking up one of the papers. Talia, these are DNA test results. Before I could respond, a noise at the door made us turn. Olive stood there with fresh coffee and a knowing look. I wondered when you'd find those, she said, setting down the tray. Your father had them done 5 years ago, after he overheard your mother on the phone with someone she called Professor. Professor? The word triggered a memory. Wait, Professor Edmund from her college days? The one she always got weird about when his name came up? Olive nodded grimly. The very same. Your father hired investigators after that call. They found quite a lot. I sank back into my chair, the second envelope heavy in my hands. Does Tiffany know any of this? No, Olive said, but she suspected something was wrong. Why else would she have been emptying your father's accounts these past few years? She was preparing for exactly this situation. She what? I sat up straighter. Check the USB drive, Olive suggested. Your father documented everything, the transfers, the forged signatures, the secret accounts. I plugged the drive into my father's laptop. Folders upon folders of financial records appeared, along with surveillance photos of Tiffany entering and leaving banks, meeting with unknown men in suits, carrying thick envelopes. There's enough here to press charges, Jalen said quietly, looking over my shoulder. No wonder she's so desperate to challenge the will, I murmured. She's not just losing her inheritance, she's losing her cover. A commotion in the hallway made us all freeze. Tiffany's voice carried through the door. I don't care what time it is. Call every lawyer in your contact list. I want her out of this house by morning. I looked down at the envelope marked for her, then at the evidence of her crimes on the screen. What are you going to do? Jalen asked. I took a deep breath. Exactly what Dad would want me to do. Tell the truth. I found my mother in the garden, perched on the stone bench where she used to make me practice my posture. The envelope marked for Tiffany felt like it was burning through my jacket pocket. We need to talk, I said, sitting beside her. She didn't look at me. If you've come to gloat, I know about Professor Edmund. The color drained from her face. Her perfectly manicured hands gripped her designer purse so tightly her knuckles went white. Who told you that name? Dad did. I pulled out the DNA results. Along with these. She snatched the papers, scanning them quickly. Her hands started trembling. These are fake. You forged these to hurt your sister. They're real. Dad had them done 5 years ago. Impossible. But her voice wavered. He would have said something. He did. He wrote it all down. Every meeting, every phone call he overheard, even the hotel receipts from when you met Edmund last year. She stood up abruptly, pacing the garden path. You have no right. I have every right, I cut in. Tiffany's been embezzling from the company for years, thinking she'd inherit anyway. Now she's threatening legal action. She needs to know the truth. You can't tell her. My mother spun around, genuine panic in her eyes. It would destroy her, like you destroyed me. The words came out before I could stop them. All those years of making me feel worthless, pushing me aside, telling Dad I was rebellious and ungrateful. Was that because I reminded you too much of him? Because I was actually his? You don't understand, she whispered. Edmund was supposed to leave his wife. We had plans. And Tiffany was the result. I stood up, facing her. Does Edmund know? She shook her head quickly. He never knew I was pregnant. I convinced your father the timing worked out. He wanted to believe me so badly. A sharp laugh interrupted us. We both turned to see Tiffany standing at the garden entrance, her face twisted in disbelief. What timing? She demanded. What are you talking about? My mother went rigid. Tiffany, darling, go back inside. No. Tiffany stalked toward us. I heard you. What's this about Professor Edmund? I pulled out her envelope. Dad left this for you. She grabbed it, tearing it open. As she read, her designer sunglasses slipped down her nose, revealing eyes wide with shock. This is a lie, she whispered. Then louder. This is a lie. It's not, our mother said softly. Edmund, he was my graduate advisor. We were in love. Stop it. Tiffany crumpled the letter. Dad was my father. He loved me best. Everyone knew that. He knew the truth, I said quietly. That's why he changed his will. Tiffany lunged for me, but Jalen appeared from nowhere, catching her arm. Don't, he warned. You're all crazy, she spat. I'm calling the lawyers right now. They'll prove these documents are fake. Go ahead, I replied. But first, explain the money you've been stealing. She froze. What? I held up my phone, showing a video from the security cameras. Tiffany entering Dad's study late at night, working on his computer, leaving with envelopes. Dad knew about that too, I said. He documented everything. I was protecting myself, she screamed. I knew you'd try something like this. You were always jealous of me. Jealous? I laughed incredulously. You took everything from me, my college fund, my relationship with Dad, my place in this family, and none of it was even rightfully yours. Tiffany, our mother stepped forward, reaching for her, but Tiffany jerked away. Don't touch me. You're as bad as she is. Worse, you've been lying to me my whole life. I did it to protect you, our mother pleaded. Protect me? Tiffany's mascara was running now. By making me believe I was someone I'm not? By watching me steal and lie and never saying a word? She turned to me, her voice dropping dangerously. You think you've won? That Dad's little revenge plot from beyond the grave gives you the upper hand? Watch me burn this whole place down before I let you take what's mine. It was never yours, I said firmly. And if you contest the will, everything comes out. The theft, the fraud, the paternity test, all of it. You wouldn't dare. Try me. We stared at each other, years of rivalry and resentment crackling between us. Finally, she straightened up, wiping her eyes. This isn't over, she hissed, then turned and stormed away, leaving our mother crying on the garden bench. Jalen touched my shoulder. You okay? I watched Tiffany's retreating figure, remembering all the times she'd walked away from me in triumph. I am now. But as I turned to go inside, I caught sight of Preston, Tiffany's fiancé, standing in the shadows of the garden archway. From his expression, he'd heard everything. And suddenly, I realized this was far from over. The master bedroom felt foreign as I moved my things in. Every surface held memories of my father. His reading glasses on the nightstand, his favorite throw blanket draped over the armchair, his worn slippers by the bed. A knock at the door made me turn. Preston stood there, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. Can we talk? He asked. I gestured to the sitting area. He perched on the edge of a chair, running his hands through his hair. I've called off the engagement, he said without preamble. I'm sorry, I replied, though I wasn't sure if I meant it. Don't be. I've had doubts for months. The way she treated service staff, her obsession with appearances, the mysterious shopping bags she'd hide. He leaned forward. Did she really steal from your father? Before I could answer, Tiffany's voice rang through the hallway. Preston, where are you? The lawyer's on the phone and what are you doing in here? She stood in the doorway, her face hardening as she looked between us. Plotting against me already? I should have known you'd try to turn him too. I'm not turning anyone, I said calmly. Preston came to talk to me. About what? She demanded. About this. He pulled out his phone, showing her a banking app. Want to explain why there are transfers from my account to an offshore bank? Tiffany's face went pale. I can explain. Save it. He cut her off. I've already frozen the accounts and contacted the bank's fraud department. You're choosing her side? Tiffany's voice rose hysterically. After everything we've built together? We haven't built anything. Preston stood up. You've been building lies, and I've been paying for them. A commotion downstairs interrupted us. Olive appeared at the door, looking flustered. Miss Talia, there are police officers here. They say Miss Tiffany called them about theft and fraud. I smiled calmly. Show them up. You're bluffing, Tiffany smirked. You won't show them anything. It would hurt Precious Daddy's reputation. Actually, I walked to the safe in the wall. Dad left very clear instructions about this exact situation. 2 officers entered the room as I pulled out the USB drive and stack of documents. Officers, Tiffany stepped forward. I want to report theft and tampering with a will. Before you continue, I interrupted, you should know that everything in this house is under surveillance, including right now. She faltered slightly. What? I turned to the officers. I have documentation of systematic theft from this estate over the past 3 years, including video evidence and banking records. I'd be happy to share it with you. She's lying, Tiffany shouted. She's trying to frame me. The videos show otherwise, Preston said quietly, and so do my bank statements. Tiffany spun toward him. You're all against me. This isn't fair. I deserve... What? I cut in. What exactly do you deserve, Tiffany? The money you stole? The lies you've lived on? The father who wasn't yours? The officers exchanged glances. Ma'am, one said to Tiffany, perhaps we should continue this discussion at the station. No, she backed away. No, I won't let you do this to me. Mom! Mom! Our mother appeared in the doorway, took one look at the scene, and turned away without a word. Mom? Tiffany's voice cracked. For a moment, she looked like a lost child. Miss, the officer stepped forward, we need you to come with us to answer some questions. Don't touch me, she jerked away from his reach. I'll have all your badges for this. My father, wasn't your father? I finished softly. And you've known something was wrong all along, haven't you? That's why you've been stealing and hiding money. You were preparing for exactly this moment. The fight seemed to drain from her. She let the officers lead her toward the door, then turned back to me. You think you've won? That you're better than me? At least I knew how to make him proud. No, I replied. You knew how to make him feel guilty. There's a difference. After they left, Preston lingered. I'm sorry, he said. I should have seen it sooner. We all should have seen a lot of things sooner. He nodded, then headed for the door. For what it's worth, he paused, I think your father made the right choice in the end. Alone in the room, I sat in my father's favorite chair, looking at the space that was now mine. Olive appeared with tea, setting it quietly beside me. Your father used to sit just like that, she said softly, when he was making difficult decisions. Did I do the right thing? She squeezed my shoulder. You did the honest thing. That's what he wanted most. A text lit up my phone from Jalen. Turn on the news. Your sister's arrest is already making headlines. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the family legacy settling on my shoulders. It wasn't victory I felt, but something quieter, something like peace. The morning headlines screamed across my tablet. Socialite arrested, family fortune built on lies. I barely had time to process it before my phone started ringing. Frederick's name flashed on the screen. Your mother's lawyers have been calling non-stop, he said without preamble. They're threatening to contest the will on grounds of mental incompetency. Let them try, I replied, watching Olive arrange fresh flowers in the study. We have Dad's medical records, video testimony, and witness statements. There's something else. Frederick paused. Professor Edmund has reached out. My hand tightened on the phone. What does he want? To talk. Apparently the news coverage caught his attention. He claims he never knew about Tiffany. A knock at the study door interrupted us. Jalen entered carrying a stack of leather-bound books. You need to see this, he mouthed. Frederick, I'll call you back. Jalen spread the books across the desk. These aren't just first editions. Look at the inscriptions. Each book contained handwritten notes, not my father's writing, but older. I gasped when I read the first one. Property of Edmund Wallace, 1962. These belong to Professor Edmund, Jalen explained. Your father bought his entire collection years ago. Must have cost a fortune. He knew, I whispered. Dad knew all along. The study door burst open. My mother stormed in, waving her phone. Have you seen what they're saying about us? About Tiffany? This is your fault. No. I stood up slowly. This is your fault. You lied to everyone, including Edmund. She flinched at the name. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. Dad bought Edmund's book collection years ago. He must have recognized the professor's name when he started investigating. That's how he confirmed everything. Those books were Edmund's legacy, she whispered, staring at them. He always said... Said what? A new voice joined us. Professor Edmund himself stood in the doorway, looking older than his photos but still distinguished. That they were meant for our child? My mother went completely still. Edmund, how did you... The news, he said quietly. And then I saw my books in the background of the photos. Books I sold 20 years ago to a mysterious buyer. He turned to me. You must be Talia. I nodded, unable to speak. Your father was a clever man, Edmund continued. He reached out to me last year, asked me to coffee, showed me pictures of Tiffany. I knew immediately. She looks exactly like my mother. You knew? My mother's voice cracked. All this time? I knew when Frederick contacted me about the DNA test, he replied. Your husband wanted confirmation before he changed his will. A commotion in the hallway drew our attention. Preston appeared, looking agitated. Tiffany's been released on bail. She's giving interviews, claiming corporate espionage and family conspiracy. Of course she is, I sighed. Did she mention the money she took from your accounts? No, but I did. Preston held up his phone, showing a rival news network's website. I gave them everything. Bank statements, texts, recordings of her admitting to the theft. My mother sank into a chair. Why are you all doing this? She's still my daughter. Because it has to stop, I said firmly. The lies, the manipulation, the stealing, all of it. I agree, Edmund stepped forward, and I'm willing to testify about everything. Tiffany deserves to know the truth about her parentage, and your husband deserved better than decades of deception. The board of directors is meeting tomorrow, Frederick called from the doorway. I hadn't even heard him arrive. They want to discuss the company's future in light of recent events. Perfect timing, I smiled, because I have plans for the company. Big ones. What kind of plans? My mother demanded. I walked to my father's desk, pulled out the folder of my published work that he'd saved. Plans that combine business with what I love. We're going to start a publishing division, focusing on educational and literary works. And, I turned to Edmund, we're going to need someone with expertise in rare books. Edmund's eyes lit up as he looked at his old collection. I might know someone. You can't do this, my mother protested weakly. Actually, I can, and I will. I sat in my father's chair, feeling its familiar leather embrace. You can either support these changes or step aside, but you can't stop them. Tiffany will never accept this, she warned. Tiffany needs to decide what's more important, her pride or her freedom, because right now she's facing serious fraud charges. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Tiffany. We need to talk, alone. I showed the message to Jalen, who frowned. It's a trap. Probably, I agreed, but it's also an opportunity. I typed back, tomorrow, the study, 10 a.m. What are you going to do? Preston asked. I looked around the room, at Edmund examining his old books, at my mother's defeated posture, at Frederick's proud smile, at Jalen's concerned face. I'm going to do what Dad did, I replied. I'm going to tell the truth, no matter how much it hurts. At exactly 10 a.m., Tiffany swept into the study wearing designer sunglasses and a recording device poorly hidden in her blazer pocket. Her lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit, followed close behind. Really? I raised an eyebrow. A recording device? Insurance, Tiffany snapped, sitting down. Since you're so fond of gathering evidence. Fine. I pressed a button on my father's desk. The house security system is now recording too. Shall we begin? Her lawyer stepped forward. My client is willing to discuss a settlement. No, I interrupted. First, Tiffany and I are going to talk. Really talk. Just us. I advise against. It's fine, Tiffany cut her off. Wait outside. Once we were alone, Tiffany removed her sunglasses. Her eyes were red-rimmed despite careful makeup. You've ruined everything. You did that yourself, I replied calmly. The theft, the lies. I had no choice, she slammed her hand on the desk. Do you know what it's like being the perfect daughter? The constant pressure, the expectations? Actually, I do. I just failed at it spectacularly. You chose to fail, she hissed. I had to succeed, had to be exactly what they wanted. And now, I leaned forward. Now that you know Dad wasn't your father, that Mom lied to everyone, she flinched. Shut up. Professor Edmund wants to meet you properly, I continued. He's your real father, and he never knew about you. I don't care. But her voice cracked. My whole life is falling apart because of you. No. I stood up, walked to the wall safe, and pulled out a thick folder. Your life is falling apart because of this. I spread photos across the desk, surveillance shots of her stealing, bank statements, forged documents. Dad knew everything. He watched you steal from him for years. Then why didn't he stop me? She whispered. Because he felt guilty. He knew you weren't his, but he'd promised Mom he'd never tell. So he let you take whatever you wanted, thinking it would make up for the lie. Tears spilled down her cheeks, ruining her perfect makeup. I hate you. I know. But I'm still going to offer you a choice. That got her attention. She straightened up, suspicious. What choice? Option 1, you fight this in court. Your theft becomes public record, you face fraud charges, and everyone learns about your real father through legal documents. Or, option 2, you admit to the theft privately, repay what you stole, and meet Edmund on your own terms. I'll even help you do it quietly. She laughed bitterly. Why would you help me? Because Dad wanted me to. I pulled out his letter. Listen to this. Legacy comes not from who shouts loudest, but from whose love lingers. He wanted us to fix this, Tiffany. All of it. By humiliating me, destroying my reputation. By telling the truth, finally. A knock interrupted us. Olive entered with coffee, followed by Preston. What's he doing here? Tiffany demanded. Showing you something, Preston replied. He placed a small box on the desk. Open it. Inside was an engagement ring, not her enormous diamond, but a simpler one. That was my grandmother's, Preston explained. I was going to give it to you before I discovered who you really were. Not just the lies about money, but how you treated people, how you schemed and manipulated. Preston, she whispered, reaching for him. He stepped back. The woman I loved was a facade. But maybe if you choose to be honest now, you can become someone real. Tiffany stared at the ring for a long moment. Then she pressed the stop button on her hidden recorder and pulled it out. The money's in accounts in the Cayman Islands, she said quietly. I can transfer it back. All of it? I pressed. She nodded. And I want to meet him, Edmund. Not for the press or for show, just to know. Okay. I reached for my phone. I'll arrange it. Wait. She stood up shakily. First, I need to tell Mom she needs to face this too. As if summoned, our mother appeared in the doorway. She must have been listening outside. I'm sorry, she said, her voice small. I'm so sorry, Tiffany. I thought I was protecting you. No, Tiffany replied. You were protecting yourself. And now we all have to live with it. She gathered her things, pausing at the door. I still hate you, she told me, but the venom was gone from her voice. But maybe you're not the worst person to run Dad's company. After she left, Jalen emerged from the adjacent room where he'd been waiting. Think she meant it? About the money or about me? Either. I looked at the family photo on the wall, all of us smiling fake smiles, hiding secrets. I think she meant both, and that's a start. Preston lingered, holding the ring box. Should I have shown her? Yes, I said firmly. Sometimes people need to see what they've lost to understand what they could become. I sat in Dad's chair, feeling its familiar comfort. Tomorrow, I'd start changing the company, launching the publishing division, making it mine. But today, watching Tiffany choose truth over pride, I'd seen what Dad had hoped for all along, the possibility of healing. The autumn breeze rustled through the library's new glass ceiling as I arranged the last of Dad's first editions in their display case. The renovation had transformed the old study into a reading room that would open to the public tomorrow. The lighting is perfect, Jalen said, adjusting one of Edmund's rare books. These will be preserved beautifully. A throat cleared behind us. Tiffany stood in the doorway, looking different in simple jeans and a sweater. The movers are here for the last of my things. Need help? I offered. She shook her head. Edmund's helping. We had breakfast this morning. The past few weeks had been a slow metamorphosis. Tiffany had returned the stolen money, given a statement to the police, and started therapy. Our mother had moved to a small apartment downtown, finally facing her own demons. How is he? I asked. Edmund? Good. Different than I expected. She ran her fingers along a bookshelf. He loves books as much as you do. Shows where you got it from, I guess. And where you got your flair for drama, I teased gently. To my surprise, she smiled. Maybe. He's kind. Explains a lot about why Mom fell for him. The sound of footsteps interrupted us. Preston appeared carrying a box of catalogs. The first printing arrived. Want to see? I opened the box, pulling out a glossy catalog showcasing the new Thornton Literary Foundation. The cover featured Dad's study, now transformed into a public reading room. Where legacy lives in letters, Tiffany read the tagline. Dad would have liked that. Miss Talia? Olive called from the hallway. The board members are arriving for the opening ceremony. I straightened my jacket. Ready to make history? Actually, Tiffany hesitated. Could I say something at the ceremony? I studied her face. No manipulation there, just vulnerability. Of course. The main hall filled quickly with board members, press, and local literary figures. Edmund sat in the front row beside our mother, their first public appearance together. The tension was visible but dignified. I stepped up to the podium. Welcome to the Thornton Literary Foundation. My father built his legacy on numbers, but his true love was always words. Today, we honor both. The speech continued smoothly until I reached the end. And now, my sister Tiffany would like to say a few words. The crowd murmured in surprise as Tiffany approached the podium. She looked nervous but determined. Most of you know me from recent headlines, she began. The scandal, the theft, the family drama. But that's not why I'm here today. She pulled out a worn book, Dad's journal. I'm here because of words my father wrote about legacy. She opened to a marked page. He wrote, success isn't measured in dollars or deals, but in the stories we leave behind. Talia understood this from the start. Tiffany will learn it the hard way. I hope they both find their truth in these pages. Her voice cracked slightly. I did learn it the hard way. But standing here, watching this library come to life, I finally understand what he meant. Legacy isn't what you take, it's what you give back. The room was silent when she finished. Then Edmund started clapping, followed by Preston, then the entire audience. Later, as caterers set up for the reception, Tiffany helped me arrange the final display, Dad's favorite reading chair, positioned beneath the glass ceiling. "I found this in one of his books," she said, handing me a folded note. "It's addressed to you." The paper was crisp, recently written. "Dearest Talia, if you're reading this, you've already begun transforming my life's work into something meaningful. I trust you'll guide Tiffany toward her better nature, just as these books guided me toward mine. Your mother and Edmund deserve their chance at honesty too. Sometimes the hardest stories to tell are the ones that need telling most. I'm proud of you, my true daughter. Love, Dad." "He wrote one for me too," Tiffany said softly, "about forgiveness and second chances." I looked around the room, at Edmund showing our mother his old books, at Preston arranging tomorrow's programs, at Jalen photographing the displays, at Olive directing the caterers with quiet efficiency. "Ready to start fresh?" I asked Tiffany. She nodded. "I'm taking classes at the community college, literature and business. Thought maybe someday I could help with the foundation, if you'll let me." "I'd like that." The setting sun streamed through the glass ceiling, casting warm light across Dad's books. Tomorrow these doors would open to the public, sharing his legacy of letters with everyone. But today, watching Tiffany carefully place his reading glasses beside his favorite chair, I saw what he'd hoped for all along, not just truth, but understanding. "He saw everything," Tiffany murmured, echoing Dad's words. "Yes," I agreed. "And now, so do we." The library settled into peaceful silence, ready for its next chapter. Outside, autumn leaves danced past the windows, carrying old stories away on the wind, making room for new ones to begin.